Welcome, everyone, to another edition of Chai After Dark. This is Sameem. I'm here with my non-billionaire co-host, unfortunately, Shabnam. Not unfortunately that you're here. Unfortunately that you're not a billionaire, my bad.
Yeah, unfortunately. You know, I don't know. Maybe it's fortunate because a lot of them are kind of crazy, as we're seeing in this series.
Yeah, we're about to discuss another billionaire from Bad Boy Billionaires on Netflix. His name is Subrata Roy. And his Sahara India Pariwar conglomerate was a pyramid scheme. And this episode is titled The World's Biggest Family.
Yeah. The world's fakest family, more like it. Yeah.
The world's most toxic / anything you can think of.
It's
anything
just literally
that can probably go wrong. This guy does to his family.
It's literally just a cult, basically.
Yeah. I know we're going to get into it, but it's just, it reminds me of almost nothing. Because I can't think of, and I always say it reminds me of this and reminds me of that. I thought about it today. It doesn't remind me of anything because 30 to 60 million people were depositing 10 to 20 rupees a day for this man.
Yeah.
I can't think of anything like that.
I know. It's really crazy. I just, this kind of stuff really gets under my skin because he's taking advantage of people that don't have much and he's already way wealthier, which is what we talked about in the last episode. And you reminded me that this is actually not that unusual in the world, right? It's not unique to India. It's not super unusual. It's just kind of really ugly when you see it. Yeah.
And I think if there wasn't poverty involved, of course, he's not going to get 30 to 60 million people to sign up for his deposits, and they're called chits.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
CHIT, little chits.
Yeah.
So little chits were deposited, and then people would get some money back. Look, I know people listen to these episodes and don't actually watch the series, but watch this one.
Yeah,
because
this one
good. Is for sure to piss you off. And it's very relevant due to circumstances that are going on in today's world and not just in the United States. So this guy deserves everything that he got, but ultimately he lived a really good life for the first 65 years of his life, just like BJ Malu.
Yeah. You know what chits are, right? A chit is just a slip. That's how you say slip in Urdu and Hindi, which is just like a deposit slip or something, right? That's what it means. Yeah.
When I was in Pakistan, like when I was 12 or 17, or I don't even know what age, I had to go pay the chit for the corner store, right? Because you didn't pay every time
your tab. You got to pay your tab.
Yeah, it was your tab.
Yeah.
And sometimes they would say tab.
Yeah.
And sometimes they said chit.
Yeah.
So I don't actually know what it was called, but that was a lot of trust involved by letting people run away with their groceries without paying for them. So I think this is how society might be in Pakistan and India. People pay into systems and expect a return, obviously, but this guy, he decided to build his own Neverland.
Yeah, seriously. Exactly.
And all kinds of other wild shit.
Yeah, but the thing is, I think because it's like a social, there's so much like social and community construct that's part of the culture that they expect that everybody else is going to be embarrassed to cheat people. But I unfortunately in our culture, there's many people that are totally okay with being embarrassed as long as they get to cheat people. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that. I thought rich and powerful people only did noble and heroic acts. That's what the media tells me. That's what Jake Tapper tells me.
Yeah. Seriously.
Yeah, Jake Tapper, the most propaganda of all time. I'm sorry, he just is. But he's a total phony, obviously. Because I'm only saying it because his book came out.
Yeah, because his book,
he's like, I knew everything.
Yeah.
That there was a oligarchy about to happen, but no, I wanted to sell my book, so I waited 2 years.
Yeah, but I didn't tell you then. I'm telling you now. But I knew everything.
Go buy the book.
Yeah.
But pay me $29.99 first.
Yeah.
Are you serious, bro? You're worse than Mr. Roy.
Yeah.
Because you have a journalistic duty, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know how we got onto the media versus, well, I guess we know how because media is in the billionaires' pockets.
Yeah. Seriously.
They even actually referenced that in this episode, like in the 2/3 of the way in. Only really quickly. It was like 30 seconds to a minute, but they were like, journalists knew, but he owned the media, so we couldn't write articles against him. So
yeah, and people get afraid to be the lone voice. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, of course. I mean, that's how Donald Trump came into power, right? Anybody that dared question him, he would go on relentless tweet storms against them and they would back off.
Yeah.
You don't want some old crazy man tweeting against you. I'd back off too, probably.
Yeah. So this story, it starts out telling us where this all ended up, right? So it's like 1.1 million employees of one of India's largest companies, like you said, called Sahara India Pariwar, gather at venues nationwide and start chanting and singing the national anthem in a uniform of a white shirt and black pants. Like, how could you get more cultish than this? I was like,
which they had to
what
buy
the hell?
themselves.
Oh, really? You found that out? I didn't know that.
You think
Did
he
they say
paid
that?
for 1 million outfits?
Yeah, I'm sure he didn't. I'm sure he didn't.
No, they had to bring their own shit.
Yeah, that's true. That's crazy. So they basically worship the CEO, calling him the Honorable Sahara Sriji, even though that's not really his name, but whatever. And so one of his right-hand men say that every visionary has ups and downs. Of course, he gets into a bit of trouble, as one reporter said, but apparently they were systematically circumventing the law. And this is like basically India's version of RICO. It ends up being like a Diddy style RICO charge, but without the baby oil. And it's just,
I mean, he probably did that stuff too, but
yeah, who knows?
Who knows?
Yeah. And then there's like a montage of Desi people yelling that they got stolen from. I don't know. Desi people yelling is like very dramatic to me. Don't you feel like triggered more than when you hear people yelling in English? I don't know. Yelling in English isn't as bad.
Well, not to get super morbid, but I've been to both funerals. I've been to like an American funeral. I shouldn't say American, but like a non-Desi funeral.
Yeah.
And then when you go to a Desi funeral, I've also been to a Persian funeral.
Okay.
Yeah, they're screaming and yelling at the funeral, right? And of course, it's sad. I don't know why I'm smiling so hard, but
they're screaming and yelling at the Desi one or at the Persian one?
The Desi one, I've heard screaming and yelling, like, how could this happen? And then the Persian one is all screaming. Like, that's every Persian funeral.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
But, American funerals are pretty somber. So I think when there's, like, emotion involved, Desis we can't hold it in, dude. It's just how it is.
Yeah. Okay, we can't hold it in, but I'll also tell you honestly, I think also Desi people, they perform it because they want to overcompensate to make sure everybody knows that they feel, that they're sad enough. They don't want anyone to think they're like not sad enough, Yeah,
I don't, like how similar would this be to something in the US, right? Like Trump wants to throw a military style parade, but there's also, I guess there's no like leaders that come and 1 million people have been like in front of them. I know India has the largest gatherings though, because just by virtue of so many people being there, but I don't know. Like, I guess there's ICE protests going on right now, but that's still nowhere near the amount of people that this guy got to chant, in front of him.
It was very military style, very cult style, the way he got them to chant. But
you said it already. He considered them a family. Sorry, he doesn't obviously consider them family, but they considered him family. Like, come to Papa kind of thing, come to Daddy.
Yeah.
It was really like sad to see these people give 10 rupees a day. And the depositors, that's what they called them. Like, so he hired a bunch of people, right? In the next montage of scenes, they kind of start to show how he did this. And it was truly just a pyramid scheme without even a product. At least in the United States, pyramid schemes have products.
Yeah. So in the early days, he started a scam to basically rip people off. And his name was Subrata Roy. And he was like really, really ambitious, but he was the son of a lowly civil servant from Uttar Pradesh, which is an economically kind of a more backward area in India. Not according to me, according to this uncle journalist on the documentary.
Yeah, they said it.
Yeah.
That's what he said.
Yeah, so he started basically this set of scams to rip people off, and this is how he started his business. He would basically promise poor people return on their investments just with certificates on paper, like the chit, like we were talking about. So he's basically like the Bernie Madoff of poor Indians, and some of whom they can't even read, but he basically gained their trust to get their investments by using one person in the community who was a trustworthy person with a good reputation, and then got that person to invest with him. And then it kind of like just went from there. Other people were like, we trust that person, and that person trusts Subrata Roy, so we should trust Subrata Roy. So it's pretty crazy.
Man. But there was nothing, they didn't get anything. They got their early returns, right? Within a few months or a year. So that's how he was able to expand his empire. But like in today's world in the United States, a pyramid scheme would be like nails, and then you buy these like colored nails. I know because one of my neighbors was into this shit in San Jose, and she was really good. Like she was actually like rich, quote unquote, because she had like 50 nail sellers underneath her. She told me once.
Yeah.
And I was like, this sounds like a pyramid scheme. So I looked it up, and it totally is.
That's crazy.
And because you have to buy all the nail inventory.
Yeah.
And then you have to get people to buy more nail inventory, but it's kind of like, why? Why do you need more people below you? So it's so they sign up, right?
Yeah,
and then you get a percentage of theirs shit, and then it just keeps going. But at least you get like pretty nails. Here, you don't get anything.
Well, you think you're
Right?
going to get an
In
investment. Yeah, you think you're going to get a return on your investment, but you don't. That's why I'm saying it's literally like Bernie Madoff, right?
And there was no way for people to invest their money, by the way, because the returns that he was showing, if they would have just invested in, you know, S&P 500 or something, they don't have means to do that. Like, so if they could, they would have actually ended up making more money.
Yeah, that's crazy. But don't you think this is funny? Because this is how they see people get married. It's like, oh, I trust so-and-so and they're friends with so-and-so and that person has a kid and I have a kid. So, hey, why don't we just get married? That's how
can you how can you trust someone to marry them? That only way that could happen is if I was like, look, my ex-wife is cool. Hey, my friend that's single, you should marry her because I've already been married to her. So I know it's cool. That would be the only way. Like, how can I ever know enough about someone to introduce them? That's why I would never do matchmaking. Like I would facilitate it. I would sit there and make jokes, right? If you wanted me to be the mahram. But no, I wouldn't like actually say this person's dope, marry them.
I thought you were going to be the next host of Muslim Matchmaker.
Muslim Matchmaker? Look, hey, whoever's listening, I'm down to be the next host of Muslim Matchmaker. At least get some
male perspective in there.
Yeah, exactly. Like a perspective of someone who's been married so many times that some people can't even believe it.
Oh, man. Okay.
What were we talking about? Dumbass billionaires, right?
Yeah. And so basically there's this auntie journalist. So we had the uncle journalist that talked about like, the lowly civil servant from Uttar Pradesh. But then now we have this auntie journalist. And she says that Subrata Roy could understand what people needed. He could grasp it and pull you in. So basically he's a master manipulator. He also did this at a time when India's economy was growing. So Sahara means savior. And of course, he also has like the savior complex. So he called his company Savior. And it was called, what's the full name? It's Sahara India Pariwar. So Sahara means savior, and India is obviously India, and Pariwar is family. So like savior Indian family. Like how narcissistic is that?
I mean, this was his plan from day one, right? He started the company pretty, like, it's not like he started the company when he was 19 or 20. He was already a full-grown adult, like in his 40s or something.
Yeah.
So he was very well aware what he was about to do.
Yeah,
It's obvious that this was the plan from day one. Mm-hmm. It's not like he pivoted into crime and started a real company. But he did become, quote-unquote, real, I guess, or legitimate in a way, because he did buy so much real estate, financial services, and media firms where a lot of his income was coming from legitimate businesses.
But he basically used other people's money to buy that. So.
Yeah, to live the high life. He bought the Plaza Hotel in New York in like 2008, only like 4 or 5 years after starting this pyramid scheme. So that's such a desi Saudi / Kuwaiti thing to do. Get me the most expensive hotel in New York. Yeah, I'm a billionaire now. Okay, dude. Okay, what are you gonna do with it? Like,
seriously,
who cares about the plaza?
So
does that even exist? I don't even think it exists anymore.
I don't know why it wouldn't exist. I feel like it does.
Yeah.
So in Lucknow, he had some journalists invest in his company as well. So in the beginning, he gave people their returns, like you were saying. So he built his credibility by doing that, actually giving people returns in the beginning. But eventually people stopped getting their returns and they got really suspicious. And it became obvious that he was borrowing from Pavneet to pay Payal.
What?
Borrowing from Peter to pay Paul.
Wait, did they say that or something? I didn't get that.
No, I'm saying that because he was obviously borrowing from Peter to pay Paul. So I just made it, okay. I made it desi.
Beat. Okay. Man, what a fucking asshole.
Yeah.
And then at the same time, he was trying to like also show benevolence and doing marriages and shit like that. It was all phony propaganda though.
Yeah. So we meet Poonam, who worked for him, and she was told first, you have to be personally invested, and then you can become an agent that brings in other people. So you have to put your own money in, and then you can be part of this pyramid scheme and rip the people off below you unknowingly. So these poor people from her village, they would start investing as little as 10 rupees a day or as little as $4 a month on Poonam's reputation. So this is exactly what we talked about in the beginning. So she said she wasn't paid a salary. She was paid on commission, and she was pressured to get more and more investors. So based on her and her family's reputation, people came in. And so Subrata Roy leveraged these community and family relationships to totally, completely rip off like entire villages. So his family, Sahara Pariwar, like I said, it means save your family. And the model of the business was basically what he called collective materialism, meaning people who have come to cities and left their families in small towns could now become part of his save your family. And he took them in to like comfort them emotionally and rip them off behind their back. And like you said, he paid for so many marriages of like hundreds of couples and gave them lump sums of money to start their life, all off the backs of these other people.
Yeah. I don't know how much of that was actual propaganda or how much it cost to marry 100 people. Like, he could afford it because he was building palaces and buying airlines, by the way. He has also started an airline. I don't know why that's a megalomaniac thing to do, I guess. But
yeah,
this reminds me of Gaddafi. Gaddafi would do that, former dictator of Libya, now deceased. He would, every couple that got married, he would give them some money and or buy them a house.
Yeah,
but he was also like a ruthless dictator. So I don't know what like this benevolence comes from. For Roy, was it propaganda or did he actually try to help people? Because he was very adamant until the end that I'm only here to help people. Poor people are my biggest goal in life, is to help poor people. All bullshit, obviously, but that's what he would say.
Well, remember when we did the Ambani wedding, the Ambanis, they also paid for like, I forget how many. It was like 500 weddings or something of villagers and gave them like a year's worth of groceries. I think you're right. It was like, it was like 50,000 and they gave them like a year's worth of groceries and all this stuff.
Yeah. But ultimately it was nothing. Like, it costs nothing for them to do that, right? Just like in America, like when these celebrities give $1 million, okay, well, they're worth 700 million.
Yeah.
So what? They're not going to feel the $1 million.
That's right? The interest on their checking account or something. Like, I don't know.
Dude, they're buying $1 million like cars, like a McLaren or like a $100 million house. I don't know. Ambani's, nothing has ever come out where it says that he hasn't paid his employees, and I think we actually mentioned that on the first Bad Boy Billionaire.
Yeah.
Every one of these Bad Boy Billionaires is the same thing. It's like, we don't pay.
Yeah.
And I don't know if they're getting it from Donald Trump, but there's so many similarities since Donald Trump's been in the public eye since the late 70s, early 80s.
Yeah.
They're getting it from somewhere. And the way that these pyramid schemes are described, very lockstep with the United States. But like I keep saying, the difference is there was actual product here and people got paid, I guess. But Donald Trump didn't pay his collection of employees. Plus, he had undocumented workers at Mar-a-Lago. So... like, wow, I think these billionaires watch too much TV.
And well, I think the most common theme is that once your ego gets so big and you get so much wealth, you don't think that the same rules apply to you as apply to everyone else. It's laws for thee and not for me.
But then why do they start airlines? It's like, that part is just so ridiculous.
I think everything becomes like a dick swinging contest at that point, you know?
No, like, I know. I'm being facetious, of course. Yeah. Elon Musk has a space company, but so does Jeff Bezos, right?
Yeah. If you can get everything, then you don't want to not have something someone else has. I think that's what it is. Because there's not that many billionaires in the world. They're both interested in space. Like, that's kind of random. Like, why don't you be interested in something else?
They're probably not the only ones either. I don't know what every billionaire does. I'm sure there's other space-funded ventures as well via a billionaire.
But how come nobody's interested in the molten of the Earth's crust?
What I don't understand about billionaires is you can't take it with you. If you could take it with you, then I would sort of understand, let me have the biggest and grandest palaces. Let me have the most adoration from the general populace and the public. Let me have the largest yacht. Let me try to buy governments. But it's also finite that I don't have enough energy to put that much stock into something that I know is going to end. And these billionaires don't seem to understand that they will die. Like, who gives a shit about Rockefeller today? Right? Or people like that. I don't know. I get that it's a in the moment kind of thing maybe, but there's plenty of other shit to do than spend money or buy governments or whatever you want to do.
Yeah, if only they were that well adjusted. So anyways, like we said last time, at a certain point in every one of these documentaries enters a token white man. So this guy, his name is James Crabtree. And he says Subrata Roy understood the power of scale. By 1997, his company was said to be worth $1 billion, but it was all a pyramid scheme. And they cut to all these cult-like shots of all the people, and they're all wearing this white shirt, black pant uniform, like standing with their hands on their heart, like a bunch of tools. And it's pretty insane. We talked about this in our Breath of Fire documentary about how rich white people are susceptible to cults because you have to be rich enough to be searching for something. And so in the 1970s in America, when all of that started, the vast majority of rich people were white. Right. But I feel like Desi culture, we're susceptible to cults that require conformity because our culture loves to have everybody conform and be the same way and do the same thing.
I think a lot of cultures like to do that, but this was a pretty cheap cult to get into. Mm-hmm. So I think that's why it was able to spread like wildfire. You're totally correct about Guru Jagat and Yogi Bhajan.
Yeah.
They came in and they feasted on the white people that needed some sort of guidance. And they were doing it under the guise of yoga. So again, in the United States, they were at least getting something. They were paying... Guru Jagat was the female, was the woman, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yogi Bhajan, they were paying him just for him to lead them and shake and bake and whatever the fuck he was telling them.
Yeah.
But at least they were getting something out of it, you know? Like, oh, let me pay $100 a month to this dude. I'm getting unlimited yoga. Which and is actually how much Yoga Box was trying to charge us.
That's funny. Yeah, but some of them actually are really into that part still, right? Like some of those people, they're like, okay, that part of it was good. So I guess you're right. They got something that even they still value.
We got
leaving
emails from yoga fans, Kundalini yoga fans. They're not into Yogi Bhajan, but they're into the yoga. But for the Sahara company, there wasn't anything. That they could fall back on other than family. And that's why he was so insistent that you dress alike, you act alike. And I don't know, we don't act like what our culture dictates us to do. I'm starting to think it's less and less like that, by the way, just because there's so much variation in what our culture could be in the United States. So I see divides and people able to get away, but then I also don't. Like, there's still some people that are so into it that they'll never be able to get away from it. So, I don't know, man. 1 billion people caught up in one thing means there's billions that are not. Yeah. So, he got the right people in India.
Yeah, that's true. So
the wrong people, you know what I mean?
Yeah. So his right-hand man says the first chemical secretion that should happen in your brain towards Subrata Roy is submission. Who says this? That sounds really...
Chemical secretion?
Yeah.
Ew. That's the first thing that should happen when you marry your woman. Not submit to Roy.
Yeah. Ew. I don't even know what to say to that. So...
Sorry.
Yeah. Then the auntie journalist, she calls it a god complex. But then his right-hand man says, I'd rather call it a guru complex. I'm like, okay.
So stupid. Man.
That makes
this
it better.
Guy, also the right-hand man was so involved, by the way.
Yeah.
And I think we said that on the last Bad Boy Billionaires, but this guy must have snitched on him or something to be so open. And now he's like making fun of him. But I was like, bro, you were so involved. And the female journalist, they flashed a couple pictures of them together. And it reminded me of when you said that Mr. Malu from Kingfisher was having a secret relationship with that journalist. This gave me the same vibe.
Yeah,
this is the same thing. Funny. Yeah. They don't talk about Roy's family or anything. I don't think he had anyone.
Yeah. So with his God complex, Subrata Roy convinced people to keep leaving their money in his scheme. They'd see it grow on paper. So they'd be like, hey, like, you know, can I get some return now? He'd be like, no, this is the time to keep it in. And they would get convinced. So in the meantime, like you said, he's buying planes, the Plaza Hotel in New York City, like all this stuff with other people's money. So there's something called Ambi Valley, which is like a Dubai type place in India. And this is exactly what you were talking about. It has its own dancing fountain. And Subrata Roy had like a Disneyland style light show there, literally like Neverland. He built his own freaking Neverland, just like you said.
It's unreal. He spent all his fucking money. He spent
Yeah.
like, it wasn't his money. Sorry. He spent all of the depositors' money.
Yeah, and there was like a fountain light show, and just like the Fantasia at Disneyland, but instead of like a Mickey Mouse, it was like him and like his cult projected into the fountain. It's insane.
I wonder what happened to this place because Neverland wasn't able to sell for a long time. I think it ended up selling to some private equity firm. So I wonder what happened to this fucking place. Like
MV Valley.
MV Valley, yeah.
Yeah.
The house looks like it was like. There's just a common theme on everything that we discuss. It looked like the house from Chippendales that Steve Banerjee bought that they showed.
Yeah.
Big old
just over the
grand
top
White house, over the top, gaudy, everything that you can think of that you wouldn't want in a house today. That's what he did. I understand it actually wasn't even that long ago. This was like early 2000s. He built a house like that.
Yeah, and then also, so in this city, like which he ended up like naming the city Sahara City, and in that he made like a replica of the White House that he lived in.
Oh my god!
It's like
you know who else did that, by the way?
Who?
Tyler Perry in Atlanta, because he's building his own movie studio out there, and Georgia is attracting significant investment so people can film movies. Hollywood is no longer there. So he has a full-scale White House on his like huge Tyler Perry Studios lot outside of Atlanta.
That is really weird.
I just watched a Tyler movie last night. That's why.
Okay.
I know that.
I don't know. I find all this suspicious. But one thing that Subrata Roy did that a lot of people in the West do is he got cricketers to wear Sahara t-shirts, like representing his brand, just like the NFL or NBA. Like people would be like,
some good
Rakuten,
ideas.
yeah. So his was a story of a man who came from nothing, basically. And in 2004, he had an Ambani wedding style who's who of India celebs and politicians attend his own wedding. And it cost $60 million, which is a drop in the bucket compared to the Ambanis.
Yeah, I just said he didn't have anyone, but I want to fix that really quick. He got married and I missed it. I didn't miss the wedding. I saw it on TV. I missed it in person.
Yeah. He's spending like other people's money like a megalomaniac. And he got away with it because he kept his company private. So because it wasn't a public company, it wasn't regulated. He didn't have to file audits in the same way and things like that. So basically, eventually, he showed his ass by spending way too much and people started to get suspicious. But because these poor people would forget to deposit such small amounts, like 10 rupees a day, they were depositing like a quarter a day. And according to the letter of the contract, they needed to deposit this specific 25 cents a day. And they would forget to do that. They would, I don't know, think like, oh, okay, at the end of the week, I'll just deposit 125 or whatever. And so then he would send them letters saying that they defaulted by not actually doing 25 cents per day. Yeah. And so they forfeited their entire amount. That's what he would send them. It's like so unethical.
People were cool with it. Like what we're about to discuss, how he actually gets like arrested and stuff, it has nothing to do with these people.
Yeah, because these people were like, oh my God. But then the problem is that the other people in the village, they then were like rightfully skeptical. They're like, I don't want this to happen to me. Like, what if I can't deposit 25 cents per day? So then people stopped investing. They lost confidence. And that obviously is a huge problem for him because he doesn't really have any other way to get credibility because he's not ever giving anybody the quote unquote returns on their money because they're non-existent. So.
Yeah. And so then he decides to go public, right?
Yeah, well, so he had to like up the propaganda and all this culty BS to gain some confidence. So in 2007, he went public to do that. And he chose 2 of his businesses from his conglomerate to go public. But now he's regulated and had to provide disclosures and submit to audits. So obviously he ended up in a bunch of legal trouble and it went all the way to India's Supreme Court. So the lawyer for India's Security and Exchange Commission asked another lawyer named Arvind Dattar to join the legal team against Subrata Roy. And he was like, that guy was like, hell yeah. You could tell that guy is like loving the fight.
He like
He's
looked
all
at
about it.
He's like, I didn't have to do anything. It's kind of what he was saying. He's like, the dude decided to go public so we could just look at all his misdeeds.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
And it was quick. It seems like it was quick, but the two businesses that he took public were like real estate and then like another one, but all the deposit business that wasn't taken public.
Yeah.
So all those poor people that you just referred to, they never got their money back.
Well, yeah. So according to Indian laws, if you take money from the public, though, you have to abide by public company laws, even if you're not a public company. So he tried to say that that stuff was just a private matter and this is just the save your family private thing. But the problem was because he collected money from 30 million people, they were like, no, this is a public issue, buddy. So
1 in 17 Indian citizens gave this fool money.
That's insane. So, and you know that it was probably like 1 out of 2 of really poor people, and like the middle class was probably less.
Yeah, this wasn't people that could afford it. Dude, we don't even want to pay a few bucks for like apps and things like that. We don't want like $5 a month charges for low streaming services, but these people were paying $4 or $5 a month and getting nothing, like I said, and that's all their disposable income.
Yeah, it's insane. So he was still showboating publicly. His ego was out of control. But the Supreme Court was like, we're ready to knock you down a peg, especially our favorite lawyer, Arvind Dattar. So they basically ruled he had to return the equivalent of $3.6 billion, which was the full amount that he took from the public, plus 15% interest. So then Poonam, one of the journalists, she said that by the time the government ordered this, it was like way too late. So they were told to tell investors that there's a new really good offer and they should reinvest that money. So Subrata Roy said, we repaid people and 90% of them chose to reinvest. So the Supreme Court was like, well, show us that you refunded the money. And so he played this age-old legal trick, which is that he overwhelmed them with discovery. He overwhelmed them with 127 trucks full of documents, knowing it would take the courts like months and months and months to review the documents. So the court got 45 to 50 people to review all the documents. And obviously there were complete inconsistencies. They had made up names of reinvestors and only less than 1% of the people really wanted to reinvest. So there was like a lot of fake small investors, and the regulators started to suspect that this is a pyramid scheme and that he was actually being used to launder money, which is really crazy. But I'm also like, you just started to suspect? Shouldn't you have suspected that a long time ago?
They were probably investors as well in this bullshit. So and also when a bunch of poor people are getting taken advantage of, the legal system in any country isn't going to move that fast.
Yeah.
It's not. So like it's going to take them some time, but like I keep saying, these people didn't get their money back. So he paid some out, but he never paid the full amount that was owed to them. So I don't know who got what, but they at this time decided to also get rid of, the creditors would come and like take the deposits, like they would go door to door, right? That's how they were accepting these collections. Then they changed it to no, you have to walk to the deposit office and put the money in there. That's why people stopped doing it, because like who's gonna go walk somewhere and do it? Then they started to get charged. Fallout was that all their deposits were forfeited because they weren't putting
25 cents in.
Yeah, like you said. But it was all by design, right? So he's like, if I make it harder for people to deposit, then I can keep the money that they already gave.
Yeah, it's insane.
Like this guy was it was like such an evil thing, and that's why this is probably why this is the third Bad Boy Billionaire, because the first two were evil too. They didn't pay their employees either, but this was like the plan from day one with this.
Yeah. So obviously the public turned against him, and Subrata Roy gets black ink thrown on his face as he's walking around outside. It's like this is a desi thing. Yeah, this is like a desi thing, like put to throw black ink on someone.
Or your
that's
shoe.
Like so or your shoe. It's like so shameful.
Those are the two things that it's going to be terrible. You can't like do anything else, right? You can't like cuss at them. Everyone gets cussed at, so you got to do this. And when I first saw it, they showed the black ink. Image when the show started, and I thought it was something wrong with my screen. And then they showed it again. I was like, oh shit, it was all black ink all over his face.
Yeah. It's crazy. So the government says like they were acting like gods. And no, that's not true. He says the government officials were acting like gods. And it's like, talk about projection. You were acting like gods.
That's what evil people do.
Yeah.
Like, they're going to do what they want to do, and then they're going to say you're acting just like them. But then it's like, you're the one that's doing that.
Yeah.
Gee, I wonder what's happening in today's world. Like,
I know.
shit never ends.
So eventually they arrested him because he didn't show up for a hearing. And he said it was because of his ailing mother. But then they saw him partying at a wedding. So
it's always
stupid.
the same shit.
Yeah.
DJ Malu was not going to get arrested until he had his stupid 60th birthday party on Bad Boy Billionaires 1. These people can't keep their shit in their pants.
Yeah.
He's like she's dying. He literally said that.
It's like
and then he's partying.
Yeah, and it's like deactivate your Instagram, buddy, and then
it's saying this is in 2013. So, dude, the internet's everywhere. They're gonna find you, and they did. Yeah. Also, come on, India, supposed to be like corruption and all this kind of shit. There seems to be a theme where they're actually putting billionaires in jail.
Yeah,
which is something that would never happen in this country.
Yeah, that's true.
So let's stop saying that other countries are third world and stuff like that. At least those countries are trying to do something, even with all that corruption involved.
Yeah, yeah. So Poonam tried to get her investors' money back when Subrata Roy went to jail. So Poonam, again, she's the person from the village who everybody trusted, and that's why they gave their money. But these poor people, like you said, they're still waiting for their money. They're super disillusioned and in shock. They call Sahara offices, and it's so sad to see them. They showed like footage of them sitting on the stoops of their homes, like calling the Sahara office, and they're getting like no answer, or this like number's been disconnected kind of responses, and it's just so sad.
The journalists were doing their job.
Yeah.
They literally went to these people that invested their money and had them call the Sahara office on video. That would never happen today in the U.S. It just wouldn't. So, again, journalists blew this all up because those poor people had no opportunity to tell their story. Yeah. This was the only way to do it.
Yeah. So apparently a journalist interviews him in jail and he maintains his story saying that this is all a mistake. And then he wants to maintain his weight in jail. So he had a yoga instructor coming in to help him with his fitness. I'm like, what kind of white collar prison is this?
Why don't you just do jailhouse fitness, man? Do jailhouse fitness. You're going to get so
hella ripped. Yeah.
Yeah. You don't need to do yoga shit, dude. Just, do some push-ups and some dips and some pull-ups. That's all you need to do, and some cardio around, your small jail cell. I don't know what the fuck this guy was thinking. He did have a lot of privileges in jail, by the way, that I did read.
Yeah, he even wrote a book. So clearly, this is like a Martha Stewart / Teresa Giudice jail.
Do you think there's a white-collar jail in India? I don't know about that.
I don't know.
Maybe he had like a big cell or some shit, or maybe they gave him an office in the jail, but I seriously doubt that there's like some white-collar Norway type of jail.
I don't know. I feel like if you have enough money, there's anything.
He built his own jail.
Yeah,
he built his own jail on his Neverland.
Yeah, and that's where all the people's money went. The poor people's money.
House himself.
Yeah, so there's all these sad stories then we get about one woman's husband who died of a brain tumor waiting to get the money from Subrata Roy so they could get the brain tumor treated. And it's just like, story after story like that. And people just never got paid back. But I was thinking, I'm like, why can't they freeze his assets and sell things off like Tom Girardi?
Yeah, that's what was a little confusing because he used the public option for 2 of his companies, but then the Supreme Court ruled that if you take private money, like you said, then you have to pay those citizens back. But it seems like only the people that invested in his public companies got paid back. The end of this episode does say a lot of people didn't get paid back, whether it's because they didn't freeze his assets or whether he didn't have any more money.
Yeah. So then, out of nowhere, he makes parole in May 2016 after 2 years in jail. I'm like, what the hell? And the company managed to raise apparently $2.1 billion by selling assets to pay people back as required by the court order. But the regulator is now trying to track down other assets to pay the rest of the people back because he was basically $1.5 billion short. And so I don't know the math on that, but 3/5 of the people got paid back only or something like that.
3/5.
I don't know. Something like that.
3/5 of a human. Yeah. See, same shit everywhere.
Yeah. It's crazy. So some people still believe he has the Okay, this was hilarious. The Karishma, that's what the guy said. I think that's like a Desi version of charisma.
I don't know. I thought that was like a god, like a Hindu god.
No, Karishma is not a Hindu.
Oh, that's Krishna.
Yeah, that's Krishna. So they still believe he had Karishma, but the hubris caught up with him.
They wouldn't translate an English word into. Actually, no, they would. Party
They
sharky,
would.
They do it all the time.
Yeah. So it's Karishma. So
Karishma.
yeah. But his hubris caught up with him, and now he's a pale shadow of what he once was. So people are still talking as if like, oh, this poor, great godlike guy just made a little mistake, but he's just been a freaking scammer from day one. Like you said, it was very strategic, very planned, very premeditated. And his main company, Sahara India Pariwar, recently claimed a value of $9.4 billion, mostly caught up in land and assets. And someone needs to go get these people their money. And this is just super disgusting.
Yeah, one of the final scenes was an old lady saying this happens in families. I know I didn't get paid back, but he's still essentially God to her.
Isn't that insane that people accept this from their families?
Isn't that what's happening today? Don't we have a daddy in charge? And so many people are like, yeah, abuse me further.
Yeah.
They don't care. So I don't know. I don't have that mentality. You don't have that mentality, but a lot of people do. And it is what it is. That's just how people are in today's world, right? And that poor lady sitting on a charpai without any money. And this guy even went to jail for 2-3 years, and she's still saying that shit happens in families. No big deal. I didn't get my money.
Yeah. Hey, tell us some tea. I know you got some tea, so we're gonna.
Yeah, that was my
tea.
Yeah. Okay, let's transition. So these episodes were cool, right? These 3 episodes that we watched on Bad Boy Billionaires, they're a little old. They're from 2020, but everybody should go watch them because they're a precursor of what's happening today, right?
Yeah.
Billionaires are so fucking sensitive that this guy, Subrata Roy, he tried to sue Netflix to not release this documentary. And he almost won.
That's insane.
And then some court in India was like, no, dude, this is all factually correct. So they were able to release it. I have 2 pieces of tea. In 2023, Subrata Roy died.
Yay.
That's number 1.
Oh, I'm sorry. I don't know. Is that
I mean, I don't know. I don't know because they're okay with killing people. Like by virtue of starving them, so I don't know. Maybe we should be.
Well, I say yay.
Death, but
I'm gonna take that back a little, but I will say that if his death has resulted in them being able to identify assets to pay these people back, I think that's a great thing. No,
that does not happen. No,
okay, then
I looked it up a little
bit.
Second piece of tea was there was a 4th Bad Boy Billionaire episode. That guy did successfully sue Netflix to not. Yeah, and his name is Ramalinga Raju.
Oh, wow.
So, Ramalinga Raju, we didn't forget about you. You did some shit too, because you were able to get that Netflix documentary not to be released, you can find it online though. I think somebody leaked it.
That's hilarious. I kind of want to watch it.
Yeah, maybe we can watch it and do like a half recap on it. So
yeah,
those are 2 pieces of tea. And the third piece of tea, Subrata Roy, that lady that he married in 2013 for $60 million. They had a son. They had a son named Swapna Roy, Swapna. So they basically had to like sell a bunch of shit to like start paying people and stuff like that back. But they accepted citizenship for Macedonia because Macedonia had these high net worth individual visas. So tax haven essentially. Okay. So they left India after he died, I think, and they were able to keep some money in Macedonia.
Really interesting. Okay, so
which I thought was a fake country for a long time, but apparently it's real.
Swapna Roy's in Macedonia. That's
I don't know if that's where he is, but they have citizenship in Macedonia and not dual citizenship. They had to renounce India citizenship to get
Wow. Okay.
Also, these news articles that I read, I don't know what the fuck these news sites are. So if it's not real, again, you can comment and we'll happily tell the truth.
Yeah.
If this is not real, but I think it's real.
Yeah. Interesting. Very cool. All right.
Yeah.
Well, there's
so he
the
dead.
tea.
He gone. Because last time we said evil doesn't die, but sometimes it does.
I think there's death and cycles to everything. Everything ends eventually.
Well, he died from stress. That's what it says. It says hyper stress and cardiac arrest, and it's like, you'll stop stealing money. Like,
yeah, that's kind of
when you have 30 million people after you in one country. Like, I don't know how long you can stay alive.
Yeah, that is pretty stressful.
Just everywhere you walk.
Yeah,
You owe me $8.
What was it?
$9.
What was it? 1 out of every 13 people. So
Yeah,
he's
1
just
out of every
walking
17 people. Yeah.
And in crowded cities of India, at any given moment, like 100 people want to kick his ass.
He was sick for a little bit, but apparently he wasn't in jail. He was out. Him and Indrani, all these. So they arrest them, but they release them.
Should we do the fourth Bad Boy Billionaires?
Maybe. People, hey, if you want us to find this fourth Bad Boy Billionaire, and or maybe we can get Mr. Raja, interview him or something to talk about it.
That's insane. I don't know.
Anyways, I am
Think about
complaining, but I'm going to go walk the beach. And then on Thursday, Sophie and I are going to Indianapolis for Game 4 of the NBA Finals. So
Yep.
my life is set.
Yeah.
I'm here for the people.
We the
I'm
people.
just kidding. That sounds really egotistical. That sounds like I'm about to start a big family.
Don't start a big family.
No? Okay.
No.
I'll keep the goalie where it is.
Yeah.
Let's get out of here.
All right.
Thank you, everyone.
yeah.
Where can people find us, though?
They can find us at Chai After Dark on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, but mostly just Instagram and TikTok. And they can also email us at chaiafterdark@chaiafterdark.com and find us on all podcast platforms. Leave us 5 stars and write us a little review. We'd love to hear it.
And if you have any other billionaire stories or if you have any tea on any billionaires, email us that as well. Let's jingle out. Bye.